Hi, and welcome to Soda Pop, a podcast about filmmakers and the films they make. I'm Robert Thomas, and today I'm talking to
Mason Vietti, senior at Wichita State, veteran of Shocker Studios, 6'5", blue shirt. That's me.
So I feel like I know you fairly well at this point, but I honestly have no clue what you wanted to be when you were younger. Like, was film always your plan?
It wasn't always film. It was always some degree of storyteller.
Okay.
When I was like a child, when I was like a kid, like toddler, it was race car driver.
Lightning McQueen.
Of course.
Yeah.
And then when I found out that
was it race car driver or was it race car?
Well, when I found out that I couldn't go to college to become Lightning McQueen, I took the next best thing and decided to be a firefighter. And then I turned 4, and then it was like artist as a kid, and then author. I wanted to write books, and then it was like 7th grade. I decided I wanted to do film because I watched on my mom's little iPod Touch one night. I couldn't fall asleep, so I watched a documentary about the making of Star Wars because it's Star Wars.
Star Wars.
It's cool. And then I was like, holy cow, this is like a thing, and it's like an art form. And that was when I was like, I want to make these. And then YouTube was really like the thing that spearheaded my passion for all of it. Star Wars videos, Pixar videos, and then anything made by Film Riot. Like, that's what.
How old were you at this point? And what year was it?
7th grade. That's 12, 13.
Okay.
And I was 12, 13 in 2014, 2015.
Okay. That tracks.
Yeah. But that was when I really got into the process of everything. And I was drawn to it for the storytelling nature, but for the last few years of me wanting to be a filmmaker, but before I went to college, I was like, I'm not going to be a writer. I can't write anything, because when I wanted to be an author, I never wrote a finished book. I'd write 3 pages and I'm like, this is great. And then I would stop.
Sure.
And so I came to college with the mindset of being a cinematographer and an editor. And I've quickly realized I don't got the juice.
That is hilarious.
I was like, I don't got the juice to be a cinematographer, and I despise editing.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think. It was Brett's script writing 2 class that I took, and it forced me to write. And I remember thinking, at the time, I was kind of like, I'm like killing this. Like, dude, Save the Cat, this book, it's saving me. And I had a great time writing, and I think it was just that class forced me to write something complete for once. I wasn't able to just stop when I was bored. And so that's what kept me going. And then ever since then, I really was just drawn to that part of the process. And then because I finished that script in like December, because it was the final. And then in March, that's when Emerson started doing the Benjamin. And then I was like, hey, I've got these script ideas. Let's do this. And then I wrote that whole script. And so ever since then, like, that's all I'm doing. And it's great. But yeah, I'm not a cinematographer. Never could be.
Well, maybe, if you put the focus in, but there's only so many hours in the day.
Yeah.
So what was your first film project? Not here, just like ever. Did you make something as a kid?
So in middle school, I made a lot of stuff in middle school, and I stopped in high school because in high school there's pressure to be cool.
Sure.
And I was like, well, cool people don't make skits by themselves. So I made skits in middle school, and I uploaded them to YouTube. It was called Unlucky Teleporting, and it was...
Are these still out there?
They're private, but they're still out there. I made a bunch of stuff that I've since deleted, and I'm so upset that I did.
Yeah.
But all these videos, they're private, and it's like the character of Mason doing something, and then he teleports somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's the whole joke.
That's classic comedy there.
It would be like, I was the first one. It's called Unlucky Teleporting, episode 1, Sleeping. I'm sleeping on bed, and then I teleport to like 3 feet over above the floor, and I just fall.
Just fall.
I did my own stunts.
Okay. How'd you do it?
I like pushed myself up, and I just like fell.
From like 3 feet? How did you push yourself up 3 feet?
So I did 7 of those.
Sure.
I did 7 of those, and then I was like, I don't know how to keep going because I I was the one that I had to wait for my parents to leave because I wasn't going to film this with parents there. That's embarrassing.
Sure.
So when I found the time for me to be fully home alone, I would set up the camera on my iPhone, front-facing camera, so crisp 720p.
I don't want to hear it. That sounds amazing.
And I mean, I did the entire thing. I edited an iMovie on my phone and I uploaded it to YouTube. They got like 30 views each, whatever. They're terrible, but they're like what I have still from that point in time. And that's pretty cool. Through high school, that was peak like Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Sure.
And so I would make fan edits to the MCU.
Okay.
And I would do it in class. Like if math was boring, I would pull out my phone and get on iMovie and I'd like edit Hulk and Iron Man doing stuff. And well, that sounds bad. I would make edits. And so
I think we found our cold open.
and so that's all I did in high school. I edited, and so I think that's why I came to college with an idea of I wanted to be an editor. But turns out editing is much easier when you only have one take of something from a blockbuster to set to music. And so that's really all that I did. And I've still got some of those private, and then I came here. And
was college always part of the plan?
Like going to film school?
Yeah.
Yeah. I am like the first person in my family to not seek out a degree in education. So I always kind of had in the back of my mind that like I had to go do that. Like I was going to go get an education degree, and like through high school I was even undecided on, do I go get a degree in education and then just like take film classes, try it on the side, that type of thing. But then I remember I spoke to one of my teachers and I told him, and I was like, hey, what do I do? And he goes, do what makes you happy. Do you want to be a teacher or do you want to be a filmmaker? I was like, I want to be a filmmaker. And he goes, go to film school. I was like, okay. And that's the teacher that I'll go and teach in his classes too still. So he's cool.
What's his name?
Mr. Fox, Dustin Fox.
Shout out to Mr. Fox.
Of USD 413. And so, yeah, I feel like I always knew it. I was going to go to KU for it, kind of. And then I toured KU and I was like, no. Then I toured here and I was like, yeah. So that's my story.
So you've been here 3.5 years. What do you think has changed most about you as a filmmaker during that time?
I feel like a lot of it is just I am significantly less of a perfectionist than I would have expected myself to be. I am very like picky, especially like in just my real life. Like I'm very picky. My apartment is always spotless. Like everything has to be perfect. Everything has a place. And so I expected my films to be the exact same way they got on set. Everything is good. We don't move on till I get exactly what I want.
Yeah,
I think
very Fincher-esque.
Is this falling? I think it is again. I think that a lot of it stems from, and I mentioned this in my practicum like review, I think a lot of it stems from, I feel like I'm wasting everyone's time if they're on my set. Yeah. And so it's like, oh, I can't get the perfect shot. You know, I only have a couple minutes. We'll get a good enough shot and we'll move on. Because good enough for me is perfect for everyone else because it's all they get to see. That's kind of it. And then when I go to edit it, I despise myself for that.
It took me a long time to get over that, wasting other people's time. Even when I started paying people, or like not directly me paying, but like being hired on companies and everyone was getting paid, where it's like, well, if we're wasting, at least they're getting paid. I couldn't get away from it. And there's the adage that I truly believe, which is like when you're doing indie filmmaking, like no one is going to get more out of the project than the director. So the director needs to be the one that's going to work harder than everyone else.
Yeah.
So I truly believe that. I take that onto every set that I'm going. Like I am so fortunate to get to do this as a job. Like I get to make believe, I get to play pretend. Like it's really awesome. And I don't want to squander that. So like I would be the one that's like, oh no, I'll carry the heavy things and I'll do all of this. And my producing partner, like not even that long ago, like 5 years ago, like just ripped into me one time and he was like, we don't have this shot that we need because you had to go and put yourself in the sad, bad position because you didn't want to ask anyone else to do it because of your ego. And now the project has suffered. And I'm like, ooh. Yeah. So like it's tough to learn, but like you've been on people's sets and you're not sitting there being all like, "Ah, Luke is taking too long coming up with what to do. My time is wasted." You're like, "Oh yeah, I see this problem. That's it. How are they going to solve it?" You know? So I think it's important to give yourself grace and remember that like everyone's too focused on themselves to care what you do, you know?
Yeah. And I know that you've also talked to me about this before, but it's like when there's people on set doing nothing, I feel like it's my responsibility to go talk to them.
Yeah.
And be like, "Hey, thanks for coming. How you doing?
Yeah.
You know, oh, these shots are looking great. Couldn't have done it without you. Thanks, man." And then I'm there talking, and then it's like they're set up. They're ready to go.
You do actually have a job to do as well. Yeah.
There's that aspect of it. I think that a lot of it also stems from mostly, I guess, my last set. I've done 2 big sets since the spring semester. One of them was it was Doc's Guide to Homicide. We shot that over the summer. It was the amount of people needed to shoot a film and no more. And that was great because everyone had a job and it felt like everyone was consistently busy.
Yeah.
And I only had to deal with the actors. And I really loved that. And then I took that energy and was like, let's go into Jimmy Trigger, my practicum 3, and let's have jobs for everyone. And so that it's just easier for everyone. And we'll have so many people. We'll have like 12 people crammed inside one room. It'll be great. And then we get there and like setup and teardown goes by so fast. And then there's like 5 people standing around.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, how you guys doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm going to go film now. And it's like that aspect. And there were sometimes shooting Jimmy Trigger where, well, there's a time that we had to go shoot up on a roof. And I was like, I'm not going to take any more people than we need to go film on this roof. And there were like 5, 6 of us up there. And I really liked that because like there were times where I was holding the boom and I was a lot more hands-on and it just felt a lot more indie in that sense.
Yeah.
And that was really nice. And to me, then it wasn't like I was wasting anybody's time. So I think that the smaller sets are the way to go for me.
It's different seasons, right?
I'll bite my tongue on that later.
Yeah.
But
yeah. That's the point of growing, you know? You'll have different approaches, 2 years from now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the projects you've done since being here. What was your first project at Shocker Studios?
Including class projects?
However you want to answer it.
Well, I had class projects that I put in very little effort into. I think that I probably faced the same challenge that most people here faced at the start, which was when I put in effort, it's going to be great. So I can't put in full effort because then I'll have to accept the fact that I'm still a beginner and it's not going to be great. Yeah. And so I would just put in B+ effort. And then it's 2 years into film school and I have B+ quality for my reels, and B+ in college is not the same as B+ for like a reel and anything. I got a memory on my Snapchat like this morning of me taking a picture of my of my laptop, and I was like, "This is all I have for my reel. I've been here 2 years, and this is all I have." Yeesh. And so as soon as I realized that, I kind of flipped the script a little bit, and I started working a lot more. I think I have keep track of every film that I work on in a year. Last year, I hit 18, I think. This year, I think I'm at 18 or 19 again. So the same amount. But yeah, and so when I realized that I was putting in little effort, that's when I actually started to try, and I realized, oh, I'm trying, and they're still turning out bad. But people like them. I think that it's easier when the first thing you make is a comedy that's self-aware because, oh, you're laughing at it? Well, I laughed at it first.
Right. You're not laughing at me, you're laughing with me.
Right. And so there's that, and then that just got me over the hill of like, okay, now I can put energy into something a little bit more serious and expect other people to take it serious. And that launched me into last semester. I made 5 films. And I remember you told me at the start of the semester, you're like, I want every student here to work on 5 films. And I said, you want us to make 5 films? And
I said 3. I said 3, Mason.
Oh, okay. Well, you said work on, and I thought you meant make. And I was like, well, okay, I'll make 5 films then, or 3. Jury's still out on that one.
Yeah.
And I make 5 films. And then now it's like, I got all the hard stuff out of the way. So now it's like I can make a film just every few months because that was my beginning season. That was my...
Yeah, it wasn't my beginning season, but I did, right before I went to grad school, I did something that I called the Year of Film with a buddy.
1 year, one film a month.
Yep. So I shot and released a short film once a month, every month for 12 months. And 8 of them probably are cringy. Like, I would never want anyone to see them. But 4 of them, like, pretty good. But even the cringy ones, man, did I learn a lot. Because instead of, being worried about, like, is this good? Is this, like, are people going to think this is dumb? I was just like, oh my gosh, I need to get this finished so I can start writing the next one and move on. And I grew so much in that. And, like, I wouldn't do that now. I might do it, like, through the school as, like, hey, school, we're going to do a project a month and we're all going to learn and grow. But I wouldn't do it for myself because I need more than a month to do my best work.
Yeah.
But when you're first starting out, there's just so much to learn.
Right.
And you're going to learn so much on every project, regardless of how it turns out. And the reality is, unless if you're, some God's gift to filmmaking, your first projects aren't going to be that great anyway. So it's better to just jump in there and learn from them and move on to the next one. So yeah, I would not recommend that after you graduate, every 3 months for the rest of your life, you try to do 3 projects. Like, that doesn't sound like it will lead to success.
Right. I think that a lot of that was, like, I used last semester to kind of get over that Dunning-Kruger effect of, like, you think something's easy until you try it and you realize, holy cow, this is hard. I tried different types of films. I'd say I had a very diverse roster of films from last semester, and I learned that I'm absolutely not doing some of those styles again.
Which ones?
So moving into this semester, I'm totally kidding. I mean, I did Reminiscence, which was it was a drama, I guess. And so it was a drama, but it was set to music. Like, I edited around music. Not doing that again.
What didn't you like about that?
I had to elongate reactions and elongate sequences to make it fit to the music. And I think that the music heightened some moments, but I also think it lessened some moments.
Because you were weakening the performance to fit to it.
Right. There was a moment where my lead actress, she kind of blows up on the guy, and she had a perfect performance, but there was a moment there, like, where you could see her kind of flip on into acting mode, and I had to keep that in there to line up with it. And I remember thinking, like, well, you can see her get into the performance, but I had to keep that there for the timing. And so that kind of blew. The next one I did was I directed Blister, which was for Wichita State. I don't know how much I need to explain it. I directed something written by another student to be a student-run production, and that was fun.
It was part of Compendium, which was a collaboration with the theater department for short films that all vaguely had similar themes.
So I did that one, and I think that directing something written by someone else was a real challenge. I reached out to Tina, the writer, and she gave me permission to tool with it as much as I wanted. But then there were moments that, like, my actors would ask me, like, what's my motivation for this? And I was like,
I don't know. It's on the page.
That's a good question. I don't know. You're the get in character. Tell me what your motivation is. And so
why do you think you're doing this?
Right. Yeah. And so that was a struggle. I learned a lot on Blister. I think that I learned more on that one than most, simply because I was doing it for other people.
Yeah.
This wasn't one where I could be like, yeah, that's a little rough, but it works. But I, like, had to show it to you and Brett, the producers, and you guys were like, ooh, cut away from that, cut to that goodness. And that was a humbling afternoon for me. But it was a good one. And then the next one was Vernley's First Mission, which was a 36-hour film race film. That one was fun. That was a lot of fun. And I found my style with that one, and everything I've made ever since is that exact same style. And then Together, which was a rom-com, made me learn I don't want to do a 20-minute class project ever again.
Yeah.
Luckily, I don't have to because I'm done with classes. But when advice for those of you listening, when your professor says, make something, it doesn't have to be super long. Like, you could do 5 minutes, do that. Finals week was rough for me.
I do think you should be really happy with how it turned out, though.
I appreciate that. I think that's the one that people regularly will say, "Oh, that's a good one," and so that's really cool. I'm really happy with it. But man, oh man, that was rough. And then the next one that I did, I wrote Doc's Guide to Homicide. We filmed it over the summer, but I'd written it.
And have you released that yet?
No. There's a lot of stuff with it that I don't think works.
Okay.
And so I am going to release it in between 2 other projects that I really like. Because I don't know. And
just to keep expectations.
yeah.
You know?
Well, Luke, our producer, you can chime in on this if you want. I feel you helped on this film. I think that it was funny on page. Like it was a comedy about a serial killer vlogging essentially a murder while he does it to give a tutorial. And it was a cool concept. Like it was great on page. And then we get there and it's just like him sitting on a chair talking to the victim and then talking to the camera. And it's a little slow. And
yeah, so I don't know about how the actual footage turned out. I never got to see that like post stuff. But when I was on set, I was having a lot of fun with like setting up for those kind of things, because we had like, you know, the body bag, and we had like the fake blood, and we had like the costuming was like, it was like all intentional stuff, and it like felt like you had a clear vision for it. So I don't know what exactly was lost, like what you think was lost, but for me on set, I was like, okay, you know, I could see what's happening here, and I was vibing with it. But
having read it, it seems like you were going for like almost a House of Cards-esque.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay, but like having funny moments, but kind of dark and serious, but like breaking the fourth wall, talking directly to the, and that's hard for anyone to do, right? In a convincing, not kind of campy way. So I could see how like you have your work cut out for you in the edit to make sure that it rings true to what you want.
It was just it's a 6-minute short, but the first 3 minutes is him narrating, talking to the audience and talking to his victim. And like, he's just sitting on a couch, and
it doesn't feel very cinematic.
That was, sorry, I remember that was the first time I was really starting to get used to Situs Link, because we did the thing where he would switch to the camera and like the lights would change.
Oh,
very
cool.
That I do remember. I mean, maybe I thought that was like, oh, this is like, that was cool. I loved seeing that. That was fun.
It was very interactive from the crew while filming, which was cool. But it didn't work, I don't think. And we showed it to some people after it was done, and then people were like, why do you do that? What was that for? And I was just kind of like, okay, I don't love it. And for the longest time, I was going to do reshoots.
How many people did you show it to?
Like 3.
Okay. I might have told you this, but I'll tell this story for the benefit of the podcast. But so in grad school, I did 2 thesis films because one, I had like the full like crew and everything, and it was like the woohoo, I'm taking this seriously. And I was on the second day of shooting that when the pandemic happened and everything shut down. So then I still had to do a thesis in order to graduate, but we were all online and we were all isolating. So I wrote something that was just 2 actors in a house, and I found actors who were married and isolating together.
Is this the mountain?
This is the mountain,
okay.
Yeah. That I could just shoot myself and do all the roles. And I did that, and I was really happy with how it turned out. But...
Continue. I won't make that joke.
No, what's the joke?
The pandemic was bad, but you don't have to shoot yourself.
No, we'll cut that. Don't worry. We'll cut that. Don't worry. Here, I'll do a little
note to the editor there. But so that I could shoot it myself, and I was really happy with how it turned out. But I also felt a little cheated that I didn't get to, you know, do the larger, more crew intensive one. And restrictions started to lift like 3 weeks before I had to turn in my thesis. So I called up everyone and I was like, we're finishing this other one. So I turned them both in. But The Mountain, it's like a psychological thriller with a like unreliable narrator. because of a head injury, and we're jumping between 3 different timelines in it. So it does have some confusing bits in it. I made the mistake the night I was turning it in, because as everyone does, I'm editing, to the last second. I'm like, this sound needs to be louder. Maybe if I take out this moment, like I'm doing that sort of stuff. And my wife, who is the most patient person in the world and has been sitting there watching me, re-edit this same like 2 shots together and be like, is it better with this frame out or should we do this? She was like, hey, I think you've spent too much time looking at this and you need fresh eyes on it. I said, you're absolutely right. It's 11 o'clock at night. Who can I show this to? She was like, well, your parents are probably up. I said, great point. So I sent it to my parents and they responded with, what did we just watch? Yeah. I have no clue what this was about. It looks like you forgot to give the actress her pregnancy belly in some of the shots, which I hadn't. It was just different timelines, and I thought it was very clearly different timelines, but their viewing it wasn't, So they were just super confused, and they were like, I don't know, to the point where to this day, whenever I do anything, my dad will be all like, well, it's better than the mountain. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Shout out to dads. But so I was crushed, but I also had like an hour at that point before I had to turn it in. So I was like, I don't know. Like, do I just turn in the other project that like is much more like traditionally narrative and like easy to follow? Maybe this is bad. Anyway, long story short, I turned them both in, and people liked the traditional one. They had nice things to say about it, but they loved the mountain. And I'm so proud. Like, it's got rough spots, as you would expect a 1-person crew, to have. But I think it's important to remember, and I stress this in all of my classes, that like audience's opinion of work doesn't change the work. Yeah. And like, if you find 500 people to watch your thing and all 500 of them are like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen, you're going to feel amazing. But those might be the only people on the planet that enjoy it, right? And if you had shown it to anyone else, they would be all like, I am offended that I've seen this, right? But you don't know that. You just think, I'm amazing. Everyone loves this. And you could show 500 people and they could all be all like, that is garbage. I never want to see anything you do again. And you'd be like, oh man, I should go and become an accountant. This was terrible. But the same thing could be true. Those could be the only people on the planet that dislike it. So many artists don't find their audience in their lifetime.
Yeah.
You can't chase the audience.
Yeah.
All you can do is make your thing and focus on the work.
Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, that project just kind of isn't my thing, I guess.
And that's fair.
I tried something and I just don't know if it worked out. And like I was saying just a little bit ago, I was planning like reshoots of, rather than him just sitting on the couch talking to the audience, it was going to cut to him like in a classroom, pointing at a chalkboard as well, talking about the steps and everything.
Could be fun. Yeah.
And then I went to Tallgrass, the film festival for the audience.
Shout out Tallgrass.
Shout out Tallgrass.
Shout out Tallgrass. We love Tallgrass.
And they had a panel on like, so you made a short film, now what? And they were taking questions, and I asked them, I was like, okay, so say you make something that doesn't work, how much time do you dedicate to making it work versus just saying lesson learned, portfolio piece, moving on? And every single one of them was like, no, lesson learned. Like, it's up to you, but lesson learned. And then I talked to some people more about it afterwards, and they're like, well, was it a feature? I said, no, it's 6 minutes. They said, why are you worried about a 6-minute short film not working?
Sure.
And so I haven't even touched it since. I think there are some bits in it that really work well. But yeah, and so that's my last semester of trying all these different genres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't believe in wasted work. So like, even if you don't go back and do anything with it, like there are things you learned on Doc's Guide
Yeah.
that will affect future work and will influence. So
there were some butting heads on the set of me and someone else. We just had different visions. And so I now know a lot better about how to work with communicating things better and all that jazz. But I think the big takeaway I got from it was I only had to work with my actors, and my lead actress, she needed a lot of not that she's a bad actress, but she needed a lot of work to get to what I wanted.
Sure.
And she would always ask questions in between lines, like, so how do you want me to say this one? And I don't do line readings. I also learned that last semester. You're not supposed to do line readings to an actor.
I mean, there's some actors that want to them, but like general guideline, yeah, don't do line readings.
Yeah. So so I struggled. I legitimately told her, she has like a bossy line at the end. I told her, you were just in your folklore era. Now you're in Reputation. And that got it. But that was a lot of fun working with just my actors.
Didn't I use a Taylor Swift, some sort of reference on Blister, and you made fun of me for that?
So jury's also out on this one.
Oh,
that
okay.
does sound incredibly likely on both parts.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's important to know your audience, and like that's what I love about directing is like figuring out how to best work with each collaborator, and like because it's not the same, and I get really bored doing the same thing again and again. So I enjoy how there's always a new challenge, a new puzzle to solve.
Yeah. The actor that I've worked with on the last two, Doc Skyda and Jimmy Trigger, he gets what I put on the page like every single time. He understands it and he delivers on it. He also, I don't expect line perfect.
Sure.
But I expect line memorized so that if they have to go line perfect, I want them. But he will ad lib a lot. And a lot of times he makes the lines better. A lot of times he makes the lines just longer.
You're right.
But I work with him
Maybe
a lot.
more confusing.
Yeah. And so he gets exactly what I'm trying to put on paper. And I don't have to tell him in between every single take like a new note. But there's a lot of times where he will ask me like, hey, I know how you want me to do this. Can I do it differently? And I'm like, yeah. And a lot of times he has the right call. And so that's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So that leads us to Jimmy Trigger.
Cool.
Jimmy Trigonometry.
James Trigonometry Jr. Yes, his full legal name.
His full legal name, if you will. Was your Prac 3?
Yeah.
It's possibly a kind of, test film for a feature. Talk to me about it.
Around the same time that I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker, I came up with my own OC, Jimmy Trigger. I came up with it, and I was like, "Wait, this name isn't taken." Oh, I was so ecstatic.
Yeah,
because all of your action stars, they all have J names: James Bond,
it's true.
Jason Bourne, John Wick, Jimmy Trigger. Put that right in it, and his name's got a gun in it. Like that is as
perfect.
good as it's gonna get. And I still have the notes app, the note in my notes app of like ideas for the Jimmy Trigger story. And I came up with that, and then like it started as like this 5-part movie franchise about just this guy. It was kind of like it was a parody of kind of Fast and Furious when it first started out, because I just watched all those movies. And then as time,
best franchise.
Right.
No, I truly believe that.
Oh, okay.
I truly no. This is a soapbox, right?
Can we get a sound effect from you, Luke?
Yeah.
It better be cheering, because no. Here's the deal: any other franchise, any other cinematic universe, whatever that means, comes from existing IP. Fast and the Furious is original IP that has become a billion-dollar franchise, right?
It started in the 50s. It's based on a movie from the 50s.
There is no world in which you could pitch, okay, we're going to start with a bunch of street racers boosting DVD, VCR, TV combos. That's what they're doing. And then by film 8, they'll be in outer space. Like, it's insane.
They went to, it was 9. They did go to the moon. They strapped a car to a rocket, and they shot Ludacris to space.
Actually,
awesome.
I guess that would be film 10 if we're counting Hobbs and Shaw, and film 11 if we're counting Better Luck Tomorrow, a spinoff film that isn't technically in the same universe, but it technically kind of is. Boom. Also, it's based on a movie called The Fast and the Furious from the 1950s.
Is it?
So, yes, it is.
Who directed that?
No idea. I think it's just like a racing movie.
Shit, hold on. I don't have my computer out. Let me fact check that for you guys.
So, is it based on it, or is there a film from the 50s called Fast and the Furious?
So anyway, I came up with Jimmy Trigger.
Great. Yeah.
And it was like, those were the blockbusters that I'd just seen. So I was like, I'm going to make a movie that makes fun of blockbusters while also being a blockbuster.
I love it.
I'll make it in 2 years and I'll be great. I'm God's gift to Hollywood, and so is this
Sure.
movie. And I kind of put it off to the side, but like I never shut up about the movie. My best friend Tyler, we grew up together, we moved here together. He's heard so much about this movie. And like a bit that kind of stuck with me was there's going to be a car chase that ends with like there would be a bit that we run out of money during the movie.
Yeah.
And the car chase ends with like Hot Wheels crashing into each other.
So, like, you as the filmmakers run out of money.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so like I would go out with a friend to the store and I'd see a Hot Wheel and be like, hey, have I told you about Jimmy Trigger? And be like, yes, you have. And so the idea never left me, but I never was actively working on it.
That's a fun bit, though.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Luke?
I have an update.
Okay.
So, The Fast and the Furious is a 1955 crime mystery drama movie where a framed man escapes prison and takes a rich woman's Jaguar with her in it. After she tries to escape numerous times, they soon develop feelings for each other and enters a road race that ends in Mexico. So,
They do go to Mexico.
I don't think that it's based on the movie.
I don't think that it's based on it.
Because it looks like a really...
But you
yeah.
doubled down on that. I was gonna just like, oh, we'll just stay on me, and we won't have Mason being incorrect there. But
Yeah. Anyway, so I'll take the L on that one.
take the L.
And so I always had the idea, and then last year, this time a year ago, I was in a creative writing class, and we had to write a story that involved a plot twist. And I was like, okay, what has plot twist? Detective spy stories. I've got my guy.
Boom.
And so I wrote Jimmy Trigger in the case of the missing LaCroix. And it was him going to get...
Let's unpack that.
I liked LaCroix.
You love LaCroix.
I stopped drinking it because it made me tired. It might have been a Pavlovian response where I would drink it and then take a nap. But
Interesting.
yeah, so I've stopped drinking it.
You just cold turkey.
Cold turkey. Yeah.
Who are you without LaCroix, though?
A worse person.
Oh,
Yeah.
who knew? Maybe
Yeah.
being tired isn't that bad then.
Yeah. Too much energy for my own good. But yeah, so there was that, and that story, Jimmy Trigger in the case of the missing LaCroix, found its way into my Prac 3, like pretty beat for beat.
Yeah.
There were some differences. This one had more characters in it and whatnot, but I used that as a blueprint to write the opening mission that he would go on in this longer story. And I kind of treated it like what I just said. There would be a longer story. This would be the first few minutes of that film. I'm going to film that, shoot it, see what people like, see what I like about it, and then we'll go forward. And so, yeah, that's where the story came from. What other questions do you have about it?
What takeaways? What did you learn? How did you grow as a filmmaker working on this project?
Getting feedback from everyone, that was awesome. But there were so many people trapped in that building.
And it kind of pulled your focus a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
And also there are some shots that made it into the final product of people in the background. In the dark, but...
I mean, you basically made Shazam, so it's fine.
Yes, I get that reference.
Shout out to film crews.
Shout out to film crews. What a great point,
I
producer.
do think it's Emerson's feet. It was a shot that we got
course it would be.
after we tore down. We had people tearing down because we didn't need audio for it.
Yeah.
It was kind of a close-up shot on the ground, and we were like, people were tearing down while we were still filming. Let's get this shot. And I'm pretty sure it's just Emerson. He's just walking in the background. The color grade removes him for the most part, but he's there if you look.
Yeah.
Should have credited him.
You should have. Kind of rude that you didn't.
So I learned that what a healthy crew size is for me. I learned to be more responsible with equipment while using it.
Sure.
Should I talk about that? on the
Yeah,
pod?
go for it.
So attentive listeners who haven't clicked away yet, I made an oopsie. We finished filming day 4 of 6, and we finished shooting at like 1, 2 a.m. and the equipment was due back to Shocker Studios because Shocker Studios rents out a lot of equipment, and you should come here. It was due back in the morning, and we gave all the equipment to my cinematographer because he had a bigger car, and he also is a freelancer who has his own equipment. So I was like, let's just leave it all together, and then in the morning we'll meet at the studio and we'll unload it together. I get a call from him like 15 minutes before it needs to be back, and he's like, dude, someone broke into my car. Oh my gosh. And so that was a morning for me.
Yeah.
So I learned to be more responsible, and someone who's had my car stolen,
Yeah.
I should have known better, but I was like, nothing bad's ever happened to a car in the 2909 North Oliver parking lot.
It's super safe. It's a gated complex.
It's a gated complex with
The gates never closed.
with just an open entrance.
Shout out to 2909.
Only the occasional mold in the water closet. Cut that. So there was that, and then that obviously killed my morale.
Yeah.
We didn't pick up shooting for another 2 months after that. 2 months in the middle of a semester already. So that,
which led to some, complications with dealing with continuity. And
yes, actor had to get a haircut, which he can do. But there was just a lot of issues there that I didn't love. I just put a big crunch on myself, but that was also just, I was going through a lot at the time, and I was like, I don't want to get back into this because I'm the guy that lost thousands of dollars in equipment, and I'm being here like, hey, let's go try this again. Whoopsie.
But you're also a student. You're here to learn. You're not here to be perfect. So
yeah, I know, but there's a lot of room between perfect and losing thousands of dollars. So anyway, whatever. I learned to be more responsible with my equipment, especially when it's not my equipment.
There you go.
And so, yeah, there's that. I learned a lot about, and this is something that I realized in the editing process. I wasn't going to edit this one, but my editor was like, I don't have time. So I was like, okay, great, I'll edit it. I hate editing, but I think it makes me a better director.
Yeah.
I realized watching all the footage back, I was like, and not to dog on my actors at all, but I was kind of like, wait, this is the performance that I
liked, and I said, this is good.
Yeah. And so I made it work, and I think that everything turned out well. I think it's a solid piece, but there's a lot of times where I was like, man, I just wish that I had the balls to just say, let's do one more.
Yeah.
You had a great first half the first time, great second half the second time. Let's do one more. Give it your all. And then that would have made, the editing process easier, but also just a better final product.
Sure.
And that all ties back to feeling like I don't want to waste everyone's time.
Yeah. That's tough.
One of my actors showed up chewing gum, and I was like, hey, you're chewing gum. And he goes, yeah, I'll take it out when we film. No, he didn't say that. He said, yeah, I just won't chew it when we're filming. I was like, okay, cool. Did you notice it?
No, but like we've all been there.
Yeah.
We have all been there.
So I'm like, okay, cool. And we do some takes, and like I was watching for the gum. I was like, he's not chewing.
He's not chewing. We're good.
I'm not going to tell him no. And then the best take that we get with him, because we had a lot of focus pulling in that one, the best take we get, he's just...
The thesis film that I did with the full crew, I had a high school senior as the lead, and she was great. She was phenomenal. She hadn't done anything on film before, and she had an acting tick where she would rub her tongue across her teeth whenever she was doing like a serious moment. So and I only caught it like on the last day, and I was like, well, she hasn't been doing it much. I'm not like, if I bring her attention to it, she's going to be thinking about it and it'll break her. There is not a shot that she wasn't doing it. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. So going forward, if someone shows up with gum, I'll be like, all right,
Off my set.
I'll buy you gum after this if you take it out right now. And so I do think it's a solid project. There's a lot of stuff that I am not happy with, but going forward, I mean, I used this as a proof of concept for me, myself too. It's like, this is an idea I've been sitting on for 7-8 years.
Yeah.
Is it really going to work? Especially since the film I did just before it, I don't think worked.
Sure.
So it's like, oh, I'm going to play it safe.
A lot of pressure.
Since it is a proof of concept, I would reshoot the entire thing.
Sure.
And so I do have that benefit that most people don't, of like, oh, you didn't like that? Okay, I'll leave it in now, but I'll take it out later. That type of thing.
Right.
And so I like that. And I would genuinely like to revisit the concept later in life. I think it's a fun one, and I think that there is a neat story to be told there. But I want to make so many mistakes on short films before I try that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Mason, what advice do you have for the underclassmen or people thinking about going to film school?
Go to film school, get a job in retail, and you're set. I've been lucky to always know that I've been lucky to have a supportive family doing that. I mean, like I said, everyone in my family went to be teachers. They went to get well-paying, stable jobs.
Well-paying.
Stable jobs.
Shout out to teachers.
Shout out to teachers, guys.
Thank you for your service. They went to get stable jobs that paid them year round, whatever. And I was like, I'm going to go get a film degree. And they're like, okay, what can you do with that? And I was like,
we'll find out.
These film right guys, they're doing well for themselves. But they were always like, okay, if that's what you want to do. And I understand that is a privilege not everyone has.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that are expected to go into these well-paying jobs. And so I understand not everyone has that, which kind of blows. But go to film school. That's great. The thing that I think I struggled with the most at the start, and I talked about this earlier as well, I didn't put in full effort, because when I put in full effort, it had to be good.
Yeah.
You know? And so I didn't do that for the longest time, because I was like, oh, well, all the people that are going to watch it are going to hate it. Nobody was watching the stuff I made freshman year. Like, my mom would watch it. My mom would like anything. My mom watches Hallmark movies 6 months out of the year.
Sure.
So shout out to Hallmark movies.
Shout out to Hallmark movies.
And I mean, my mom will just love everything that I do. But I think that the biggest advice that I can have, and I'll tell this to like anybody, is like you're your own worst critic. That's the big thing. It's like, I make a film, and I mean, together, I think the best thing that I've made to this day, we filmed the same scene 2 months apart, basically, because I wanted to get reshoots. And so just miraculously, in some of the shots, there's leaves on the trees, and then in the others, they're dead.
Sure.
Which blows.
Yeah, but if people are noticing that, you've lost them anyway.
And I've done it. I've shown enough people, and not a single person said, what about those trees?
Yeah.
What
Really loved your film, but those leaves not being there.
And so what is, like, when I think of Together, and I think of, like, how much I hated working on it at certain times, mostly just editing, crunch time, finals week, all that jazz. When I think back on it, that is my biggest gripe. And like, I will take that being my biggest gripe of the film. Yeah. Just allow yourself to fail. That's also a big one.
I think that's great.
Yeah. Allow yourself to make something bad.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Well, Mason, this has been a delight. Where should people follow you to keep track of Jimmy Trigger and other adventures?
You can follow my work on Jimmy Trigger and the Mystery Box and my 2 upcoming films, The Worst State Imaginable and I Think We Should See Other People, on my Instagram, my film Instagram, which is Vietti, Vietti.TV, Vietti TV.
Yeah, just how it's spelled on the screen there.
Oh,
You can point to it. Yeah, there it is.
this, but with .tv at the end of it. And I have a website, masonvietti.com. This, but with .com after it. Those are the 2 big ones.
Cool.
You can find me everywhere else from those 2 places. So,
Perfect. Well, Mason, I've really enjoyed this. Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. Soda Pop is a production of Wichita State University School of Digital Arts. It is produced by Luke Schrader. It is edited by Ashlyn Farney. I'm Robert Thomas. Give us a like and a follow on all our socials, and hit that bell notification so that you don't miss all the cool stuff our students are doing. We'll catch you on the next one.